flipping back the calendar to highlight yesteryear's finest and exploring the vast archives in cinema history. This is the Movie Review Rewind podcast on the So Bros Network. Welcome back for another episode of the Movie Review Rewind podcast right here on So Bros Network. Mine's right, ass is tight. It is December of 2024, and you know what that means. Every year, we got to talk about a festive holiday movie on the Movie Review Rewind podcast. We're going to be talking about 2000's Brett Ratner flick starring Nicolas Cage and Téa Leoni. It's a film called The Family Man. I am your host for the Movie Review Rewind podcast, the EIC at SoBrosNetwork.com. Big Natural Stoney Keeley. You can follow me on Twitter at Stoney Keeley. Follow us collectively at So Bros Network on all major social media platforms. Joined as usual by the resident film critic of So Bros Network. He is a member of the Southeastern Film Critics Association. He's sitting on the board of the Music City Film Critics Association. He is Mr. Big Shot himself, Brandon Vick. Brandon, how you doing? Let me say, first of all, happy holidays.
Thank you. I really feel the Christmas spirit right now as I speak to you.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
What do you think about The Family Man as far as where it fits in the grand pantheon of Christmas movies? Because we picked this one to talk about because it kind of feels like one that is lost in the shuffle sometimes in these discussions.
I don't really think about it when I think about Christmas movies that I must watch.
Yeah.
I'll be honest. It is a nice one. But I mean, I can think of quite a few that like I would watch before this one.
Do you think it slips through the cracks because it is not entirely a Christmas film? Like I mean it's
I don't think people think of it as a like
it's not about Christmas.
Yeah. No, that's fair.
Or do you think it's because a lot of people kind of think it's a bit of a ripoff of this, It's a Wonderful Life, A Christmas Carol?
I mean, that's what I kind of thought. I don't think I realized it when I first saw it, but when we just rewatched it, I'm like, oh, this is like Scrooge and It's a Wonderful Life, and look what your life might be or could be. So yeah, in that sense, people are going to go watch those other ones.
So did you like it more in 2000 than you did in 2024? Would you say your younger self?
I would say yes, but I don't think it's necessarily like a well-made movie.
Okay,
but I do think it's more meaningful now to me than when I saw it over 20 years ago, because I'm older, I have a family, and so some of its themes hit closer to home than when I was seeing it and I was 15.
We would have been 14.
14.
Yeah. We would have been 14.
So yeah, I don't know if I don't think it's like a great movie as far as just like, kind of the way that the way the narrative goes and, the dialogue and stuff. But I think it's still heartfelt when it needs to be. And like I said, I do find it more meaningful now than certainly when I was 14. I wasn't even wiping my own ass till I was 18.
I think when I first saw this at 14 years old, it did kind of feel like a sort of the message of don't chase the money, you should want a family. And
more of a what do you consider happiness?
And,
right?
And I think watching it as a 38-year-old in 2024, this is the first time I've rewatched this movie. I mean,
I don't even know the last time I saw it.
It's not in my regular rotation.
Right.
I think I'll put it in my regular
Will
rotation.
You?
Yeah, I liked it quite a bit.
Okay.
I liked it quite a bit more now
This time?
than I did back then, but I think I don't see it that way. And that was something that a lot of the critics of this film kind of hammered home, like repeatedly, review after review on Rotten Tomatoes, is like, this is an assault on the middle class. It is, it's insulting the very people that are going to be paying money for this ticket. It's when I pulled one of the quotes from Mark Caro of the Chicago Tribune. Highly compensated Hollywood types who make calculatedly commercial movies are the last folks who should be telling us we're unworthy, unfulfilled people if we don't sacrifice everything to raise a family. Now, see, I kind of felt like that when I first saw this as a teenager. I kind of remembered, like, well, not to that degree, but I kind of felt like the message was, don't buy into the greed and the money and that stuff. But I didn't feel that at all watching it in 2024. I felt like it was more of what Nicolas Cage's character is talking about in the restaurant, where he's like, it's not better, it's just different. And I felt like it was more about the path not taken and the concept of the moments we all think about sometimes, where it's like, what if I had done this thing differently?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I thought they did a good job of like painting him to be a pretty happy guy as a single bachelor that's rich, wealthy.
Well,
but I think he sees pieces of himself in the family man side of his character that eventually, he realizes there's happiness there too.
Yeah.
And so I never felt like rewatching it that it was a disgrace, an insult, disrespect to middle class people.
No, I didn't and I almost feel like what seemed like the more fulfilling life, and it looks like it's the family side of it. Yeah. Yes, he's single and has money, but like you said, I mean, it's random women. He's going to go do this, talk business, go skiing alone, all by himself. I mean, and then you kind of see him wanting to kind of have that life as the family man, but that's not what's important. So I feel like that to me is more of like, it wasn't even about middle class, but it's like, what do you hold dear? And it's not always about money. It's sometimes just about being with the people you love, and that actually is enough, even though the bachelor Jack would never see that.
Yeah, sure.
But I think, to your point, and I think that's kind of the real power of the movie, is I think it's more of like, in the real world, they both are living pretty good by the time they meet each other in the end. Mm-hmm. But I think it is one of those what if situations, and look at the life that maybe we could have had, and then they would have been different people, but I do think in the end they would have been happier, even if you don't know it. And you would have been.
I think the decision to make Téa Leoni's character, a big successful lawyer that's moving to Paris, France. We know what Nicolas Cage's character is in the real world. They still find each other in the end.
Yeah.
And to me, the decision to make her this big, successful, wealthy lawyer goes to show that, like, they're still finding their way to each other, and this happiness is still possible with the jobs, the careers
even with
that they
money
have.
Or whatever.
Yeah, so I never took it to be this thing where it's like, oh, well, this suburban life must be so terrible for him to give it up to start this family. And
that never crossed my mind. I don't even think it would have back then, because I think it's more of encouraging the family life than it is of just being a rich prick that really has no one. Is what I mean, is the picture they're painting to me.
Yeah, I kind of felt like, I don't know, like, I can kind of see it because I saw it as a kid. Whereas, like, you watch this movie and you feel like, oh, the message is to not go down this path, but to go down this one instead. But I just didn't really pick up on the nuance. And in a way, that was something that really surprised me about this film upon rewatching it. And it really surprised me that it was a Brett Ratner movie.
Yeah, me too.
I think it's more of a testament to the script itself than it is, which was something that was also pretty heavily criticized by a lot of critics.
I could get on board with that. I think there is a lot in there that falls flat, and some things that And I think some things which he's always done is just the decision on how to deliver certain lines, especially the way Cage does. It almost seems like that you would be laughing at him more than even whether you sympathize with him or not. But I think there are times where you connect with him in some ways, and then there's scenes where I feel like you just kind of like I don't know. There's a disconnect. Like I don't even really know why. Like with everything else going on, the whole where when he is the family man, and there's that flirting with the other woman, and then ends up about she and putting her a dress and stuff.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even know. I mean, that just kind of seems like a weak little subplot that didn't even need to be done to me, because he's already going through so many things that I don't think you needed to act like, oh, you know, since this isn't his real life, he'll just go cheat. I think there's way more stuff going on that we could have probably done a little more exploring than just kind of have, you know, that. I don't know. That didn't really work for me.
I think it was him seeing parts of his old self in this completely alternate lifestyle. Here's this attractive woman that's still into me because I'm this successful, handsome man. I liked it with the whiskey bottle. He finds the whiskey bottle in the desk of his office at the tire shop, and it's like, oh, I bet you needed this. But it's connecting in a way that shows him like, oh, there are still things about me that are present here in the family man.
Well,
and the singing. He's singing in his closet in his underwear when the movie opens, but then he watches the home video of him singing to his wife. So it's like, to me, that was all about the light bulb kind of going off as a way for him to connect. And I think ultimately what it is, the heart of this movie is that, you know, we're still who we are, but in a way we are the byproduct of our choices, and the choices that we make can get us in completely different situations.
Yeah. Well, and that's what I liked about when he tries on the jacket, the suit jacket.
I thought that was one of the more powerful scenes in the movie.
See, now to me, that one really connected, and then he ends up kind of unloading, where I guess maybe some critics would say this is when he starts kind of really shredding this middle class.
Yeah.
But it's one of those where, I mean, to me, there's even just a simple way of like, it resembles his other life, and how great it made him feel just to put that on and to take an inch. And then, but you know, it's almost like he's brought down to earth because she's like, you know, it's $2,400. Like, why would you even want to do that, you know? And so it's that internal struggle and that's why he ends up trying to kind of get his job back in this life, but it's not the way. It's because he has someone else with him there saying, hey, what's wrong? Why do you have to have that?
Yeah. And I wish they had followed up on the subplot with Evelyn to see, because we never see how that's resolved. And
no,
I think it's interesting because, like I said, I think there are layers to it where it's one of the things that he sees where he kind of, it makes him feel like his normal self, so to speak.
Yeah.
But it's also a device to show how lucky he is with Téa Leoni's character, because they have Jeremy Piven there that kind of tries to talk some sense into him, but it's a very brief exchange, to your point, how, you know, it can kind of feel out of place in the rest of the story, but they could have used it to really hammer home, like, no, you don't understand how lucky you are, because he doesn't understand, because he doesn't have those memories.
Right.
But you have somebody there in that supporting character, Jeremy Piven's role, to tell him, like, every man in this town would be chomping at the bit to get with your wife, but they never really get there with that.
No.
It's just a couple of lines.
And that conversation could probably even be put in another scene.
Yeah.
Without just the bowling one and the woman. But I believe you're right. I think Evelyn is just another device that shows him of him missing his other life, and that, oh, look, I I can still do this.
I still got it,
Yeah.
even though I'm in a fucking bowling outfit.
But
at a
maybe
bowling,
that's what it
bowling
is.
alley.
Maybe
Yeah.
it just seems like it was just kind of thrown in there
Well,
because, hey, let's have this tease of cheating too, and poor Leone's character. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And I think it all is set up for that conversation to say how lucky you are. But I feel like there's a lot more in the movie that says the exact same thing.
Yeah.
And gets those same emotions out than just like, I feel like it's a little cheap. Just like, okay.
Yeah. But she did look good in that dress, though.
Yeah, she did. Yeah, he should have fucked her. Yeah, I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't appreciate the nuance in that aspect of the story because I don't feel like you got much ground to stand on pushing back on the critics who panned this film for it being predictable, because I mean it is.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
is.
yeah.
And at a certain point when you're watching movies, you're either okay with predictable or you're not. Me personally, you can do predictable if you set a nice atmosphere, if you have good actors that deliver a good performance, if you've got a good score, which Danny Elfman did this
Yeah,
movie.
I saw that. That Brett Ratner and Danny Elfman, I had no idea were a part of it.
Yeah, it really sticks out like a sore thumb in Brett Ratner's filmography,
Yeah.
but we'll get to him.
But pacing is another thing where you can be predictable, but depending on how kind of snappy it is, and and maybe and I think the one thing with this is that, to me, and it does kind of just go with maybe the structure of the story and the dialogue, is that it's not that clever in what it's doing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's why a lot of things, it does seem kind of bland in certain elements of the movie.
Yeah.
But there are things that work, and the things that work, they really work to tell the kind of story they're wanting to tell about happiness and what if. And so I think that's why I can't just dismiss the movie as, because I mean it was good, but but there are things in there that I think could have made it better. And honestly, I kind of feel like you rework the script and probably get someone else to direct it, I think you might have something better.
Yeah.
Even if it, again, same story, they're going to meet and everything else, but there is something about it throughout that just kind of seems like we get to the single stuff, then we get to the family stuff. And with the family stuff, there's not really a lot of conversations like with the children.
Yeah.
It has a couple of good ones about the alien and stuff, but it's almost like I don't know. There's supposed to be this like real emotional connection, and not everything builds up to that when he is actually leaving. I think it's a nice touch when he sees stuff, when he's singing to his wife, like we talked about.
Yeah.
There's things like that I think are really kind of more moving than, he talked to his daughter twice. That should be good. So when she says that at the end, like, I knew you'd come back, it's not that, like, it's almost like, okay, great. I'm glad y'all talked with, 3 times in 3 weeks and thought that was strange.
Yeah.
Which I think he makes a reference that it's only been a few weeks, which is quite surprising to me because I could have sworn it was more than that. But
yeah. But ultimately, I think with the critique of it being predictable,
yeah,
I'm okay with predictable if you make the other aspects of the movie enjoyable. I really liked Nick Cage and Téa Leoni.
I did too.
Personally, I don't remember ever being like that impressed with a Téa Leoni performance.
I don't
mean to
know.
slam her.
No,
I mean, she doesn't have an extensive filmography, and really her latest thing has been Madam Secretary, which she did in 2014 through 2019. And that's really, like, she doesn't have a whole lot of acting credits to her name.
I remember her being married to David Duchovny.
Yeah, and they had a kid together.
Yeah.
Let me see what her filmography
There's a
looks
movie
like.
that she's in.
She's in A League of Their Own. She's in
I don't remember
Bad
her.
Boys. I don't remember in that. Deep Impact. I don't remember.
I remember in that.
I remember in The Family Man. Jurassic Park 3.
Oh, yeah. That's with her and William H. Macy one.
She's in a Woody Allen movie, Hollywood Ending.
Oh, yeah. I remember. Yeah. Okay.
People I Know with Al Pacino, Kim Basinger. She's in Spanglish.
Spanglish. That's the. I was like,
Fun with Dick and Jane.
Oh yeah, with Jim Carrey.
And she teamed up with Brett Ratner again for Tower Heist in 2011.
Oh,
but
that's Ben Stiller.
She did a movie with Ricky Gervais called Ghost Town.
Oh, that's a funny one.
The Smell of Success. Billy Bob Thornton. Ed Helms is in that too. And yeah, that's it. Other than
Spanglish was the one I was thinking of. There's a movie like I can see her in that I remember, but yeah, and I forgot she was in Fun with Dick and Jane.
Yes, but I mean, still like not a lot of kind of a modest filmography.
Yeah, I agree.
But I think with her performance, Nick Cage's performance, I really liked just the classic element of magic that the story has. Kind of feels right
Don
at the
Cheadle.
holidays. Yeah, Don Cheadle, and really like the place that New York City itself had in the story as well. I think those are things that I point to and I say, you know what, predictable's fine if you hit these other things. And I really liked the movie, but at the same time, I can acknowledge, it's kind of like saying, yes, we can all agree it was pretty predictable. It's just a matter of whether that bothers you or not. So where do you sit on that? Like if
I'm okay because I think there's movies now where I think how it's going to go, but it's not really. I mean, what do they say? It's not really about the destination, it's the journey. Yeah. There's been predictable movies, but I'm going to tell you, you charm the pants right off of you.
Yeah, for sure.
And you can't. You've Got Mail, perfect example. We know how that's going to go. I can watch it. I could watch that movie every day.
Yeah.
And I also feel like there are movies within the early 2000s that do kind of play to a certain formula. And then if you put it about, around the holidays and stuff, some things are just there to kind of tug on the heartstrings, make you feel good. And yes, the fact that they had coffee at the end at the airport, which is where it started.
Yeah.
You should already know that. Pretty much.
A lot of critics seemed really mad that this was cheesy and predictable, and I was just kind of like, what harm is being done? Even in the year 2000.
They sound soulless.
You think of like the generations, the hundreds of years of storytelling that we've had. Like it's very rare that you find truly original stories, and even when you do, they're not all executed well. So
right.
I don't know, sometimes like in film criticism, I feel like people sometimes get caught up in this idea like not every movie is going to be a standout original story of its own. And
yeah, look at the horror genre. Holy shit.
I just kind of felt like some of the critiques
it's a bit unfair.
Were really unfair towards this movie for like what it is. Like it is very clearly, to me anyway, like I went back and watched the trailer. It wasn't really presented as anything other than like a crowd-pleasing holiday movie. It came out in December 22nd of 2000. Like this kind of felt like something that
they knew
would
exactly
have been perfect to go see with your family at
They
Christmas.
knew exactly what they were doing with it.
Yeah, so I felt like that was a little
That's a bit
harsh.
unfair. I think there's times where I think you kind of pick on a movie being predictable when it feels predictable at almost every move.
Yeah, or
right?
like I said, like it's missing a lot of the style elements that do make it feel unique.
Then I feel like there's times where I will say, listen, it's familiar territory, but it's something. Or there is nothing going on that hasn't been done before and a lot better. Yeah. I think those are different things. You can have,
sure. Mm-hmm.
You can kind of even have that predictable ending, but how we got there is part of the fun. But when it's not, it's painful to get through. Then predictability is like, okay, I didn't think this had it. I think there's a better movie somewhere in there, but I do think what they're able to do, and I think a lot of it is probably performance based. It gets you when it really needs to, even though if you kind of sit back and think about everything, you could ruin it for yourself.
Yeah, and I think there is a lot of intentional vagueness in the movie because you can't spend too much time thinking about how the physics of everything work out. And there has to be some devices in there that kind of make it, easy to process. Like they just kind of decide. I thought it was an interesting decision. Like the little girl can tell that it's not her dad.
Yeah.
And she thinks it's an alien, but at the same time, it serves its purpose in kind of getting him from point A to B. And she tells him, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to do that.
Right. Because at first when they're open and then like, oh, hey, tell me, when they're having cake.
Yeah.
And talk, but then so parts of me feels like, wouldn't you be a little creeped out if these are things that like after 13 years, like someone wouldn't be like, what the, like, how could you forget? Like, I don't think it would be one of these movies. I think it'd be a drama about how he has like he's having dementia.
Yeah.
What do you mean you don't?
Because I was thinking about it during the movie, and I was like, I think at a certain point I would check myself into a hospital.
Yeah.
Like I don't know what's going
or
on.
Is it being chalked up to midlife crisis, and we're just letting it go?
But you can't.
Like I said, you can ruin it.
You can't think about that. A lot of intentional vagueness in this movie to just kind of get the plot home, I guess.
Yeah.
But and that does kind of tie into it. But oddly enough, like I didn't see too many people that critique that. Like you want to call it predictable and same old stuff designed, to make people feel good at the holidays, but like you could really get into the weeds on like how does this work?
Yeah. No, it's true.
Because it's not just a one night thing like we see with A Christmas Carol where Scrooge has a dream and wakes up. Yeah, it's
went weeks with it.
He's living in this dream for I mean,
and wakes up and it's only been a day, or it hasn't been any time.
Yeah, by the time we get near the end of it, it's Valentine's Day. He's walking into the store and they're like advertising Valentine's Day stuff.
Yeah, so it can't be just a few weeks.
Yeah,
because he woke up on Christmas Day.
Yeah, so there are problems with it.
Brett Ratner didn't give a shit. He didn't think about much. So
Brett Ratner, like. Basically,
I think it's kind of gross, right?
Hounded these people to get this movie, which is so weird to me. It is weird because he was working on the Rush Hour films at the time, which I'm curious how they hold up over time.
Me too.
I haven't watched those in a long time. I haven't watched any of his movies. There's some movies that I haven't watched at all. He's a big like TV guy. He's a big music video guy.
Yeah.
And I don't know, man. I was going to ask you this later, but let's just get into Brett Ratner now while he's up. How many music video guys do you know that translate really well to filmmaking?
God, I don't. David Fincher.
Yeah, it's like a name or
that's
two.
That's the
right?
name I mean. That's the name I know. I'm sure others. I think maybe F. Gary Gray was one. Who worked with them, who's done some
of the Fast and Furious movies.
Yep, he did.
The Italian Job. He just came up on this season of Drinking With, a few months ago.
So, but yeah, I just know not recently, within a year or two, he got in trouble.
Oh, he got in the kind of trouble. He's immigrated. He's living in Israel now.
Oh, really?
He was.
Oh, I didn't keep. Oh.
He was Me Too'd pretty hard.
Okay, that's what I thought. And then people started coming out the way he was talking to people on his sets.
Yeah, and it was the type of thing you don't come back from, and rightfully so.
Yeah.
By all accounts, and then he immigrated. He's not even in the country anymore.
Oh wow.
So his filmography: Money Talks in 1997, Rush Hour, The Family Man, Rush Hour 2, Red Dragon, After the Sunset, which I never saw.
That's Pierce Brosnan and Woody Harrelson. That's actually a fun movie.
X-Men: The Last Stand, the weakest of the X-Men trilogy, I would say. Rush Hour 3, Tower Heist, and then his last film was 2014's Hercules, starring Dwayne Johnson.
Oh, nice.
It's not a lot there.
No.
And then, he's done some short films. He's a producer.
I think he
on a lot of
produces
stuff.
more than anything now because his name has shown up in some movies recently.
He was a producer on Santa's Sleigh.
Oh.
How about that?
Well, in that case, that Bill
Running
Goldberg.
Scared. Mother's Day. Horror film. psychological horror film. Oh, he was a producer on Horrible Bosses. I mean, if we can count that, I think that is probably... Oh, he was executive producer on War Dogs.
Yeah, I think he's still in the producing
Black
game.
Mass, The Revenant.
I want to say his production company was Rat Pack.
It was.
Okay.
Yeah.
And I think they still work.
Well, he doesn't have a credit since 2019.
Oh, okay. Maybe they just don't put his name on it.
Yeah, well, he's everything is
Okay.
2017 is when he got Me Too'd, and he has one production credit for 2019 on a film titled Georgetown with Christoph Waltz, directed by Christoph Waltz.
Yeah, he directed. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's his 2019 production credit.
Oh, okay.
And then some TV stuff, TV series.
I mean, he's not a great director. Even if he wasn't Me Too'd out of the country,
Yeah.
he's not a great director.
Ton of music videos. And that's about it. So, like I said, The Family Man kind of feels like something that really sticks out on, his filmography.
I think he kind of like those glossy action movies that are crime capers.
What would you say is his best directed film?
Well, I mean, hearing the title without going back and seeing him, I'd probably say The Rush Hour, because Tower Heist was all right.
Yeah.
Family Man was pretty good, but I remember thinking Rush Hour was a really fun movie.
Yeah.
But like you said, if I go back and watch it now, I may feel differently. I thought After the Sunset was kind of
I don't remember
an
that
under the
movie
radar
at all.
kind of fun movie, and I think Salma Hayek's in it too.
Yeah. Mhm.
About stealing a diamond, I think. So I mean, I personally kind of enjoyed that one. So maybe that's my favorite one.
I think I might go with The Family Man.
Yeah.
Yeah. Very different style from a lot of his other movies, and I never saw the Dwayne Johnson Hercules movie.
No, that wasn't very good.
Yeah, I didn't.
Shocker.
Didn't think it was. So, but Brett Ratner describing how he pestered people to get this job is just, it's really weird to me, because it just feels
Is it
like
slimy.
No, it just, well, no, I mean, he was just like telling the executives, like, I was born to do this movie, like, I need it. I get this movie. And the studio was kind of concerned because he didn't have a family.
Yeah. Why is he the man to do it?
Yeah, and eventually
this feels like Ron Howard.
Eventually they gave it to him, and it's like so different. Like, why? Why did he read this script? Just described it as something that he really wanted to do and felt like no one else could do it. And I'm watching this interview and I'm thinking, actually, I think there are a number of people that not only could do it, but could do it a lot better than
I'm with you on that one.
What he did. But I think the thing that kind of saves him here, I liked the script for the most part. I think there were some things that, obviously we talk about, like, if you stop and think about this too much, you're going to ruin your experience.
Yeah.
But I think it was a good enough script, and having Nick Cage and Téa Leoni in the roles that they were in, I think that's really what this film had going for it. And like we've talked about Téa Leoni, like, I don't remember her ever being this good in anything that I've seen her in, and I don't mean this to be disrespectful, but in a lot of stuff, like, she just doesn't really stand out to me.
Yeah.
But this was awesome. I felt like this was good stuff from her, and I felt like it was kind of like the standard issue Nick Cage. It's like we know
mainstream
he's good,
Nick Cage,
but it's not. It's not like one of his defining performances or anything, but like standard issue Nick Cage is still good enough to carry the movie. In your opinion, what was it that made this an enjoyable flick? If you could boil it down to the secret
performances.
sauce. Yeah.
It's performances. I'm not as high on the script, and again, I just think the narrative, there's some things that just aren't really either there's no depth to them, or we kind of just present it and then we don't come back to it. And like I said, I just think there's a better movie in there, but I think it rests on the shoulders of the performances. And And even sometimes there are some scenes, but I think it's more of the script not doing them any favors, where some stuff just falls flat. I think I said it earlier, but for the most part, what they're able to do with that material is pretty good. And the movie that they're in, I think it gets the meaning across. I think it gets their message across. Switch Nick Cage out with someone else, and I don't know.
I think he is particularly good as like rich Nicolas Cage in this. And that's where I do think the script excels, because I think they write him pretty good.
Yeah.
And his vernacular and the way he carries himself, like you even notice like the way that he walks is different. It's like very much,
and the words he uses when you can tell, because it's high society.
Yeah.
And
and so I think
from the city.
But I think that is part of what makes him so good in this role, is because it is a stark contrast. It's almost like he's playing two different characters.
It's Face Off, you mean?
It's Face Off.
It's Face Off.
Like you see it in like the home movie he's watching where he's singing to his wife, and it's like he's playing a completely different person.
Yeah. And I think obviously the point is that he kind of finds that within himself of the family man that he could have been.
Yeah.
But when he's talking about the cake, it starts with him being the prick that he is, and that he saved that piece for him.
Yeah.
But the way that scene ends, by the time they're on the stairs before it all goes to hell, is them, I think, who he used to be in that life.
Yeah.
Where they're kidding around, chasing and everything. Like, if you tell. And I actually remember it, and when I heard it again when I went to rewatch this, and it's lost on me what it is, but I think it has something to do with a kid. But he's like, that's mine.
Yeah.
That was mine.
Yeah, when she takes the bell.
Yeah, that's what. Yeah, he's like, that's my bell.
He thinks that it's like a wonderful life, where like you ring the bell and
the angels.
Don Cheadle's going to come back.
Yeah. So I mean, he does a better job with what he's given than I think a lot of actors. Could.
Yeah.
I'll put it that way.
Yeah. I like I've said, I think it's hard. I don't want to be pretentious and say, "Oh, people lost the plot. They missed the point of the movie." But I do think the movie is more about the path not taken and seeing what that was like than it is giving up your riches to settle down and have kids and all that. I didn't get that impression from the movie. I felt like it was just the opportunity to look back and reflect upon like what could have been if this one decision, this one completely life-altering decision had been reversed and gone the other way, seeing the glimpse of what that was like.
And I like the little things where, at first he thinks he didn't go, but then he finds out that he actually did go, but he came right back.
Yeah.
There's little things like that are very sweet.
Yeah.
I wonder if the movie would have gotten criticism, instead of being rich, he just had this other family that he hated.
Ooh.
And he's like, my God, you are way prettier than my hoe back.
My frumpy ass wife, I ain't got no game. And over here,
do you think? But they both live in the suburbs. Yeah. So no one's rich.
Yeah. I don't know. There's a story idea somewhere.
And Nick Cage could do it. I'm gonna tell you.
Yeah,
he'll do it.
But I wanted to ask you if there is a decision that you've made in your life that you ever contemplate sometimes and wonder how your life would have been different if you had done something else. We don't have to bring up like old relationships in case I'm not trying to get our wives mad at us.
No. And I actually didn't think anything. I didn't think about the one time I think I got really close is I took a production job with a company out in North Carolina and did a project. And the thing is that I was actually going to move up there and work with them.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wait,
and-
you were going to move up there like permanently, like
yeah,
take
at
the
least
take
yeah,
the job.
Yeah, it was going to start as like a 6-month thing, and my parents were going to help me, and then I would start doing production stuff and getting
Yeah.
paid. It was
Yeah.
kind of like an internship that grew into. But then I was prepared. Like I remember us looking like at apartments, and I was going to work at one of like a Regal theater just to kind of have something.
Yeah.
And I'd quit the golf course job that I had for years. But while I was at that production, and as it got a little closer, the conversations weren't really happening. And then when it got towards the end, it wasn't really there wasn't as much of a commitment as far as what was I actually going to do and how long was I going to do it for free.
Yeah.
And it didn't really sit well with me. I wasn't comfortable with it, and so I came back and called it my boss at the golf course and said I'll be back in a week. But I do sometimes think about like, well, what if that worked out? Like, would I have lived there? Would I have moved back? Would I be Sobros? Would I met my wife? Would we, and because you don't know what opportunities they are and if you pass them up or not. And I think that's part of kind of, he went with that one path and it rewarded him in one way and it didn't in others. And he didn't know that. And so, that's one that really sticks out. Relationships, not really. I think I always kind of knew. I didn't want to get married. I didn't want kids, and then that started to change after I'd met Britt, and so I felt like that was kind of more natural. Like I actually found someone where I'm like, I can live this. It makes you feel those things. I can live this life.
Yeah.
But I do think about that because it got pretty serious. And then, and I don't know if maybe my heart just wasn't all the way in it because I wasn't as let down as I thought I would be. I'm sure I was scared to a certain degree, but then when it just sounded like there was really no deal, I just thought, that's not what we talked about. And then of course I still am. I'm one of those that if you can't tell me now, then I can't trust you enough to move up here and just stop what's going on back
Give up
home.
your life, basically.
So, I know I made the right decision, but there is times where, when you're young, you think, well, maybe I'll do it. I think about what if I had gone to film school? I wanted to go to Watkins Film School. I guess
I remember that.
And then I thought, mass comm, and then I minored in film studies, and then I do music videos, but then somehow it changed to where it got more into writing, and now with film, being a film critic, but that's more of just kind of a path that one place takes you to the other. That we're moving out of state, that was a big deal, and I just remember I even picked up an application at that Regal Theater, and was gonna do it. So that's crazy. That's been years ago. I haven't really thought about it in a while.
I had a similar decision. There probably were a couple of women in my past that I think, wow, what if that had actually happened? But thinking about the career choices was the first thing that came to mind. I have a psychology degree from Middle Tennessee State, so I do often think about if my career as a writer would have been accelerated had I known then what I wanted to do with my life, or knew where I would ultimately land. If I had just gotten a journalism degree, if I had gone into sports broadcasting at MTSU, which, there was a pretty good program for journalism at MTSU. Like,
that nursing was like the thing. Was it nursing or recording?
Recording industry. Yeah. So there is a part of me that thinks like, would I have struggled for 11 years with Sobros Network if I had just gone to school for this to begin with?
At the beginning.
But instead, I had this plan that I wanted to get into pro wrestling. I wanted to be a pro wrestler, and the advice that I was always given at every turn was like, if you've got the chance to go to college and have that backup plan because this doesn't work out for most people. And I went to school for psychology thinking I'm going to get my bachelor's degree. I'm going to go off to wrestling school. I'm going to get out of Tennessee. I'm going to get out of Nashville. And if it doesn't work out, then my plan was to come back to school, get my master's degree, and go into either guidance counseling or sports psychology. Sports psychology was kind of a new thing when we were in college. There weren't a lot of programs for it, but I kind of thought like that was my backup plan. Like if this doesn't work out. And I'll never forget like the WWA 4 school in Atlanta. Like I'd emailed some people like, come on down. It's fine. Like I'm going to go get a job at a fucking grocery store or something, whatever I've got to do to pay rent, to get an apartment. And I had the money saved up for, you know, the school that I was going to do. And then I hit a snag in graduation. And I know you know the story, but our listeners don't, where because I thought I was an undeclared major the first year of college. So I took that university studies class, the class that the teacher caught you making that awful face when you thought she wasn't looking. That class.
And I can't recreate it to this day.
No.
I have no idea.
One of the funniest things I've ever seen in my life. But in that, because I took that class, those 3 credits did not count for my psychology credits. So they came to me and said, well, you're a psych major and you're missing 3 credits. And I said, well, like, how did this happen? Like, I was an undeclared. And they were like, no, our paperwork shows that you have been psychology major from the moment you got on campus. And I was like, so I took that class for nothing. It literally counts for nothing. And they said, right, yes. So I signed up for that class thinking I was undeclared and I had to have it, but I didn't. It was just a huge miscommunication. So I didn't graduate in May of 2008 with you guys. I had to go back for a summer class. So I signed up for a business course because that was my minor, was management. I signed up for a business course in Excel because I thought this is easy. I already know Excel. 6 weeks, I'll be able to graduate in August. But then the course got canceled a week before it was supposed to start. And I tried to get in anything. And I don't know if you ever had to do the summer programs, but like they're kind of few and far between to begin with.
I took a couple of film study ones because I wanted an easy, like 12, 15 hour for my last year. So I took 2 of them. And I remember staying up there because all I did was watch movies because we had no cable because no one's going to pay for cable because I was the only one up there.
Yeah. So,
but once they're gone, they're gone. They were very.
That class was canceled, and I was legitimately just trying anything to get the credits, and nothing fit with what I needed. And so I had to enroll in the fall to get 3 hours of credit that applied towards my major, minor, something I can't remember. And in order to get like my scholarship covered the summer class, but didn't cover another year, basically. So in order to qualify for another grant, I had to take a full 15 hours. I had to take 5 more classes.
Because of university stuff. Well, really because you were declared psychology from the moment
So I don't graduate until December of 2008. It's a long way of us getting there. And in the amount of time, so the 6 months between when I thought I would graduate, when my friends graduated, and when I actually graduated, we had been doing backyard wrestling for a while. We'd had a couple of like brushes with the industry, and I took a couple of lessons from buddies that were trained. Where it's like, we're going to take you to Charlie Daniels Park in Mount Juliet, and we're just going to teach you how to take bumps on the fucking ground behind the community center. Yeah. And I go through that, and, I'm starting to kind of realize I got bad knees. I've had a few concussions. I had some back injury. I hurt my back working out in college in 2006, and to this day in 2024, I still feel tension in certain spots in my lower back, and had it scoped out, and doctors told me they couldn't really find anything wrong with it. So I just lived with it for all this time. I'm sure it's going to be great when I'm like 60 or 70 years old, but I start seeing all this stuff, and I start seeing the money, and I'm having conversations with my parents, and I eventually back out of the decision because doing the backyard wrestling that we did, like I started to notice the deeper we got into it. And I never took any major crazy bumps or anything like that. But, you know, every show we did, I was doing something. And I remember there was a show when I took a bump on the concrete floor. And I just remember thinking, like, I don't think I'm going to hold up doing this for very long.
Yeah, think of the damage that could be done.
And I kind of, you know, started thinking, like, this is a lot to really bank on, like, my health. Like, I'm already starting to let the doubt creep in. Like,
yeah, well, I think that's natural.
I don't think my body's going to hold up.
Yeah.
And if people aren't successful at this, and I'm going to spend all this money, like thousands of dollars on the training, I'm going to uproot completely and move to Atlanta. It wasn't like an automatic thing, but I'm saying, like, over the course of 6 months, as my plan is coming together, I'm starting to think, like, I don't think this is a good, I think I should have had a better plan than this.
Yeah.
Because what I didn't count on was that it's really hard on your body.
Yeah.
And doing it at the level
but
that
besides that,
I had been doing it at to already feel the pain. And this is also like stuff like playing football in the backyard and smacking into each other as hard as we could, and playing kickball where, like, my head's bouncing off the ground and all this stuff. You just kind of start to realize, I don't think it's in the best interest of I'm like, at the time, I'm 20 years old and I'm already feeling pretty beat up.
Yeah, you would go hard on some of these events that I think a lot, I know myself would think, you know, I don't think this is worth it.
Yeah, and it really wasn't.
I'd rather, like, if I screamed and just slapped a ball and people called me a pussy, I'd be like, okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So
I can go home feeling pretty good.
So then I made a girl at the time, and I think I was really sad. I was really in a depressed state at the time. Not really good mental health, and I think I used her as a crutch to kind of get me through that, but not really happy, you know. And it took some time for me to get to a point where I was confident and happy on my own. And from there, it was kind of like, okay, what do I want to do? And I still wanted to entertain. I still wanted to be in a creative industry. And eventually, that's what got me to wanting to write. And the light bulb kind of went off, and I'm thinking back, like, oh my God, I'm good at these research papers. I'm good at, you know, telling stories and writing stuff. Like, how could I not see it before? And it was because I was so blinded by this obsession with wrestling, not even realizing that it wasn't the physical stuff that attracted me to wrestling. It was the stuff like the promos, the entrance music, the fireworks, the big crowds, the storytelling aspect of it. And so, like, you eventually get to that point, you get settled in, and the rest is history. You know, I've been fortunate to have some pretty decent jobs. I love my wife. My life is pretty good right now, but there are times that I think about it, like how close I was to really packing up a backpack and moving to Atlanta to pursue pro wrestling. And there's a part of me that just wonders, you know, if I had developed the tenacity that I have now back then, could I have made it work? How long would I have held up?
That's true.
Could I have gotten in better shape? And those sorts of things. And I think this movie stirred a lot of those feelings in me. Like, what would be my alternate timeline?
I think so much comes with age, though. I think you have this idea of what you want and how fun it'll be, and then I don't know. I mean, that's why it's true. I think the older you get, you learn a few things, and then you kind of see what you really do enjoy and what you can do. And then, I mean, you do have to think about health and stuff. And as you meet someone and as you have a family, you really start to think about your health. So I just feel like that is part of the process. But it is funny on just how quick. I mean, I sometimes think, like, what if, like, would we still have the friendship we have if we didn't go to the same high school? What if you went to Mount Juliet and I went to Wilson Central?
Well,
what if you didn't go to MTSU? What if you went somewhere else? So I mean,
you
there's
can dial
things
it
like
back
that too.
When I was born, my parents were looking for houses in Bellevue.
Yeah. So
what
we would
happens if
never-
they had bought something
Right.
out there?
And I lived in Antioch till I was 5.
Yeah.
So I mean, there's so
it's
many
crazy.
things like that, but then there are things like when you're old enough and you think you know what you want to do, but I don't know, man. I just feel like stuff in life happens to be like, hey, yeah, you know what? That was fun, but that's not what my life is going to be.
Yeah. Yeah. So the family
boy,
man.
what a yeah.
Well,
Back
hang on,
to
we're not
him
done.
having. What if he has just a shitty family and he just wants out?
We're not done though,
Oh.
because the Film Flux YouTube account put together a review of this film, and one of the things that he pointed out was how nice of a moment it was when Nicolas Cage runs into Don Cheadle at the convenience store, and he goes back home to Taya Leone, and he knows his time is up.
Oh, yeah.
Like he knows
Yeah.
that it's over, and he tells her, like, I want you to remember me the way that I am now. And I wanted to ask you, what would you tell your loved ones if you knew that you were going to disappear tomorrow?
Oh gosh, this is way of a deeper movie review rewind than I was prepared.
It's a good movie to do it with.
I guess it's the holidays. Nothing like
It's the holidays.
doubling down on on that. What would I tell them if I knew this was my last day?
Yeah.
I
liked what Nicolas Cage went with, by the way.
and I do too. I think it's about, remember me when I was at my best, or
Yeah.
when I was funny here, or what I don't know. I mean, I think it would go along the same lines as kind of remember the guy that I am and what I loved, and and it's kind of that image of loving something. I mean, I do think movies will follow me until I'm gone. I just think that, and one day, when I'm gone, they'll say, oh gosh, when it came to movies, or when Brandon went to this movie. So I think movies are just a part of who I am now.
Yeah.
But, I mean, I guess my humor, I always, the older I've gotten, the more I've kind of appreciated it. It's not for everybody. And I'm amazed that have the family and friends that I do, because my humor is very different. It's toned down a bit. My wife has helped me with that, but I think it's stuff like that. If kind of just the stuff that made me who I am, not kind of what I did, or what whether it's work or even movies in a sense, but just the love that I had for movies when I could just talk about them, but also like what I may have been the only one laughing, but remember me laughing at whatever ridiculous thing that I thought was funny only for me.
Yeah. I would say I hope everybody remembers how hard I worked, how hard I tried to just make people smile.
Yeah.
And to show the people that I love them.
Yeah.
And I would also ask people to remember Scott Hall's quote from his Hall of Fame induction ceremony.
Go ahead.
Bad times don't last, but bad guys do.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. I do. I always think if you need to, like with my parents, every conversation I end with, I love you, or I love you.
Yeah.
And
Mm-hmm.
I truly don't know where I heard this, but I just remember, and I don't know how many years this has been, that you never know what tomorrow will be.
Yeah.
Don't leave it without saying it, just in case. And I know that's kind of bleak, but the truth is, I would hate to not have said it, and then something happens to me or them and think, if only I would have said it.
Yeah.
So that's something I keep, which is weird when other people don't say it, but I understand that's not how everybody is. My wife's family, that's not who they are. It's a see you later, bye. And I totally get, but that has always been in my mind, and to this day, I don't even know where I heard it. I just know I heard it.
Well, that was one thing. I lost my father 10 years ago in 2014, and I am so thankful. Like, we didn't always have the best relationship. When I was a teenager, we really didn't get along. There's a lot of family stuff that probably doesn't need to be said on a podcast for
About
people to
Family
listen
Man?
to.
Yeah.
But but we had some turbulent times, but when I got into college, I really began to appreciate him and empathize more with his struggles. And I think I remember getting the chance to tell him and my mother when we would come home from college on the weekends. I mean, we grew up in Mount Juliet. We went to school in Murfreesboro, 20 minutes away.
Yeah.
So
Why would
still
you?
come home on Mount Juliet to do our laundry and see all of our friends that were also coming home and that sort of stuff. And I remember going out to what is now Memo's Mexican Kitchen in Mount Juliet. It was his restaurant on Friday nights. And I remember them asking me, like, why are you hanging out with us? Like, you come home from college and you're going out to dinner with your parents. And I remember getting the chance to tell them, like, no, I think, like, we're past all that. Like, I don't care to be seen with my parents. Like, I love spending time with you guys. And getting the chance to kind of get closer to him after that when I got older and clear up a lot of the stuff. Like, man, he went in 2014 and it's painful even to this day, but I think about how much more painful it would be if there was stuff left unsaid.
Yeah.
And I'm so fortunate that we had that time together to clear a lot of that stuff up.
It's a lucky thing, and the older you get, the more that you realize sometimes you have to say that shit out loud because you're going to wish you did. Yeah. And I even, having a kid has made me really think of kind of my lifestyle that, I have to make changes. I'm a diabetic and I don't want to go at 60.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, there's so much that, and I think people just take for granted, but you don't know what you got till it's gone. And some people don't until it really is gone. But if you have those moments, they mean so much to you. And that's probably especially 10 years. And you think, God, it's funny how much you kind of appreciate your parents as you get older because they'll always be our parents, but you see them as just human beings.
Yeah.
Like how tough it must have been to get married at 20.
Oh, I know.
How tough it must have been to finally have a kid at 30. And I mean, I don't know. There's just things where there's empathy for it and then when you become a parent, you're like, how the hell did we even get here?
Yeah.
So
to land the plane.
Yeah.
These are all themes that popped up while I was watching The Family Man.
It's not nearly as emotional as our stories, but...
No, but I think the reason I liked it is because it stirred those things within me, and those are things that I certainly did not appreciate when I was 14 years old watching this film for the first time. So...
I think we both can agree that it's more meaningful now than it was then.
And it's interesting to go back through film history and kind of see how the lens is flipped.
Oh, yeah.
Over time.
That's why I love this podcast and even kind of connected with Drinking With because I could sit here and tell you about how awesome a movie is, and then I'd go and watch it for one of these podcasts, and I'd be like, I guess I was just a dumbass 14-year-old. This is awful.
Exactly. Yeah. So if you could give The Family Man retroactively a VIX Flix rating, what would you give it?
I'd probably say a 3 out of 5.
Yeah, we're in agreement there.
Just for the feels.
For the feels. I'm at a 3 out of 5 as well. That's going to do it for another episode of the Movie Review Rewind podcast. I hope you've enjoyed this festive holiday edition. We never really landed. Do you consider The Family Man a Christmas movie?
I do, but only to a certain extent.
Yeah. It's going to be like on down the list of stuff that I get to. But I think it's a good option for those years where you're like, I've kind of watched the favorites. I kind of want to watch something a little different.
Yeah.
And you could pop that in. So
I would agree with that.
I enjoyed this episode. Hopefully
me too.
Everybody listening enjoyed this episode as well. This has been the Movie Review Rewind podcast. Thank you all for your continued support of Sobros Network. He's Mr. Big Shot Brandon Vick. I'm Big Natural Stoney Keeley. And until next time, you stay classy, moviegoers.